Hello everyone, welcome to my class. Today we are going to discuss Class 12, Flamingo's first chapter, The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Well, Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist and a short story writer.
The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. So let's talk about the author first. Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist and a short story writer. His actual experiences of life at every social level and his course of travels helped him to achieve some natural gifts. Then during the Franco-Prussian War, which had a profound effect of his writing, he enlisted in the French army. France lost the war and his failing health forced him to go back to writing for the rest of his life. Now let us see the theme of the lesson. The last lesson reflects on the importance of one's language for any race and why it is crucial to safeguard it. Second is hegemony of the imperial and colonial power. Here hegemony refers to dominance or leadership, especially by one state or social group over others. Next is how lust for ruling the world influencing its culture and identities. Next we are going to see the importance of language as an asset, especially in the times of crisis. And then we'll discuss how the fear, shame and agony of losing freedom of learning and using mother tongue affects on the people of France. It's really heart-touching. Now let's talk about the characters of the story.
Now we'll discuss about the protagonist of the story. So Mr. M. Hamel and Franz were the two protagonists in the story. M. Hamel is a French language teacher at a school and Franz is one of his students. The whole story revolves around how the impact of war has become a life-altering or a life-changing event for both of them.
Here we have a map impression of Franco-Prussian War. And now sharing some scenes of the Franco-Prussian War. Here is an image of Napoleon III and King Bismarck after the battle. One more scene depicting Franco-Prussian warfield. Now let us discuss the lesson in detail.
Before we move towards the chapter, let's discuss the chapter sketch first. So the last lesson is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War. In 1870 to 1871, it was led by Bismarck and the French district Alsace and Lorraine passed into Prussian hands. Now we will discuss about the protagonist of the story. So Mr. M. Hamel and Franz were the two protagonists in the story. M. Hamel is a French language teacher at a school and Franz is one of his students. The whole story revolves around how the impact of war has become a life-altering or a life-changing event for both of them. The narration of the story is done by a French boy named Franz. He was sensitive and honest schoolboy who accepts his faults of ignoring his lessons. He was lazy, but in spite of his laziness, he was sensitive by nature. Now, another important character in the story is Mr. M. Hamel. He was a French language teacher who is passionately patriotic and he breaks down at the end of the last lesson. Mr. M. Hamel was quite sincere and strict in his profession. As I told you in the beginning, the story narrates the year 1870 when the Prussian forces under Bismarck ruled and captured France. The two districts, Alsace and Lorraine, passed into the hands of Prussia. Now the new rulers have discontinued the teaching of French in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. So Mr. M. Hamel also could no longer stay in his old school. Still, he gave the last lesson to his students with utmost sincerity and devotion as ever. Now, one such student of M. Hamel who dreaded French class and M. Hamel's iron rod came that day thinking he would be punished as he had not learned his lesson on the participles. But on reaching school, he had seen that the old people of the village also were there at the back benches in the class, and M. Hamel was also there in his fine Sunday clothes. There was an order from Berlin. That was the first day when he realized how important the French language for him. But unfortunately, it was the last lesson and it was the last day at school. The story depicts the pathos about the whole situation and how the people feel when they don't learn their own language. It tells us about the significance of one's language in one's life for the very existence of a race and how important it is to safeguard it. As I mentioned in the beginning, the French district of Alsace and Lorraine were captured by Germans. The new master was to come on the next day at school. Then onwards, only the German was taught in place of French. So the story tells the effect of this particular news on the life at school in Alsace.
So students, I hope you understood the gist of the story. Now we'll discuss the question answers in the next session. Bye everyone.